major complaints.
Yes, same here. Same here. So, I have some really interesting interview questions for you today. We did some conversing the other day and came up with some all right questions that I think you'll have some fun answering.
Great, great. Go deep into my criminal past or something here.
I mean, you have a pretty nice long IMBD profile, so that gave me a lot of stuff to work with.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's I'm old, so you tend to have a lot of stuff.
I think the better word is experienced. I don't like the word old.
Yeah,
It's too much negative
experience. Yeah,
connotation.
veteran,
Yeah,
veteran here.
yeah, veteran. There you go. That's a good answer. Alrighty. So our first question was: can you give a short, concise explanation of your personal addition to the entertainment industry?
My personal admission to it.
Addition, like the biggest thing that you've put out for content or for work that you've put out that you think is the biggest part of the industry. Like your
I don't know, different, things for different eras. In the '80s, it was probably Transformers and GI Joe and that stuff. Um, you know, uh, '90s is probably video games. I wrote some movies during the earlier part of the '90s. D&D's kind of sort of stuck with me all the way through my career.
D&D is still going
Um,
really well now.
what?
D&D is still going on really really well right now. It's still
Oh
like the most
yeah, no,
popular
it
tabletop.
is it has had an amazing comeback.
It
Yeah,
has.
it's an amazing comeback, and is more relevant now than probably ever. That's what I'm saying. You just different times. Different things. I become really important, and kind of hang with you. So I'd say it's just you answer me the question and ask me that question in any different decade, and you kind of get that decade's answer.
Yeah, I think those are all pretty good answers because those all show the amount of flexibility you have or able to do. You said movies and then you said games and then you said tabletop game. Those are all like pretty hard to come into if you don't know what you're doing, especially if you've only done one certain thing. Transferring into a different type of entertainment is pretty difficult. So that's
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I always kind of thought of myself as being I'm kind of a sort of transmedia guy before that was fashionable. I mean, I always done stuff that was pretty yeah, just working in a lot of different mediums, doing different things. I would say is probably the big thing that would distinguish what I've done.
yeah. I mean, and that's a really good point because if you think about it, the amount of games that you worked on in the '90s that kind of like paved the way for a lot of other games to really thrive. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
the thing with D&D is D&D has been a thing since like the '70s and '80s, like a big thing. But like Critical Role is like one of the biggest Twitch channels on Twitch, and that's all D&D exclusively. Like I have so
Oh
many
yeah,
friends
no,
who
I mean
watch
that was
D&D all
just
the
a
time.
brilliant, brilliant thing. I mean, you had a bunch of voice actors kind of saying, "Hey, we're D&D players. What are we
Mm-hmm.
going to do?" And all of a sudden, just have this brilliant, this epiphany that we'll do it as a show, and it's really worked. It's been huge.
It's been honestly pretty crazy that they went from that to you agree like they're all voice actors and they becoming basically like the biggest group for Twitch streaming on for D&D. It's insane.
Yeah,
They've
no, yeah, it's fascinating. I think it's great.
Yeah, especially with all the new games that have come out nowadays, people are still more involved in wanting to play D&D than they are playing some of the new video games nowadays, which is pretty crazy.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I think it's gotten just really huge.
Oh, and I'm sorry. My name is Trinan. This is Ethan.
Oh, hey,
This is
Jen.
Kaiser. Sorry about that. All right. So our second question was, how is the major addition of what you said help propel your life and career forward?
How's what changed it?
How
Propelled it
is the
forward?
major addition? So the first question was obviously supposed to be like one thing, but you said a certain thing per decade. So based on all the things you
Right.
said per decade, how have those major additions of things that you worked on propelled your life and career forward to like the next step?
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, I mean, sometimes in really kind of obvious ways, I mean, it's like you do one game and it's a hit, and you get other games, or movies or stuff like that. Sometimes it's not obvious. I did a military strategy game in 1991 called Line in the Sand, and I ended up working for various departments of the government, as a byproduct of that. Saying you don't see that coming. You know what I mean? In other words, some things are just, kind of, incremental, where you've done something, and the next thing comes along, and you have relationships and people you worked with before you work with again. And that's, I mean, you can't overstate the value of a network. And then other times they just kind of come out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's, and end up being real life changers. So there are a lot of answers to that question.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, because that's very true. Because there's a lot of even like movies and certain games that have come out in recent memory that have literally been like people in the same room talking about ideas, and all of a sudden they come up with an idea, and it's like, oh, that's such a good idea, we can make something out of it, and that's how some huge industries are born. It's literally just like ideas.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's you're sitting talking to a bunch of people, and it seems like some kind of garbage time conversation, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh man, that changed everything.
Exactly, yeah.
And that happens personally. It happens with mediums too.
It's honestly
or
kind
you
of
do
crazy
something
how that can happen.
Yeah, and like you can't see things coming. I mean, just one day I'd written a book about game design and writing, and I got a call from a guy at UCLA who said, hey, we use your book in our class. We'd like you to come, teach a class here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, great, okay. But what's the thing that bounced to that I didn't see coming was, I said, I've already written the book. I don't want to do a book about that. I said, but what I want to do is alternate reality games. And next thing I know, I'm doing it for the government, and then I'm and that would sort of dress rehearsal for what would become Ingress, and then later on Pokemon Go. For my career.
Which again, Pokemon Go,
so it was,
as everyone knows in the world, was the biggest game for all of 2018, literally. Right? Was something like 2018, 2016, 17?
2016.
2016? Okay, yeah. So, like, I mean, I was still in high school at that point, but I remember all my friends, even their parents, they would go play. To this day, one of my really good friends and his mom will still go on drives just to play Pokemon Go. Like, we'll go out for like 45 minutes to an hour just to play it. It's crazy.
No, it's funny how that works. I mean, it's stuck around and had much more of an afterlife than probably certainly any of us would have seen coming.
Exactly, and it's weird because it's like such an easy game to get into and then get addicted to as well so easily, because so many people can play it. You can be very, very young and like Pokemon and play it, and you can be very, very old and play it. Like.
Oh yeah, and it's a classic play pattern. And it's the absolute, perfect use for an intellectual property. I mean,
exactly.
The idea was always you
well
go catch a Pokemon, and then all of a sudden there's a game where you catch a Pokemon. I mean, that's it's kind of as good as it gets for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a win-win for. I mean, people, because it's supposed to be for exercise as well. That was probably a good idea,
yes.
Right?
Well, yeah, and that's what we knew is that I mean, at the time though, is nobody really, I don't think anybody really totally believed that people were going to go outdoors to and walk around to play a video game. That was the big controversy, because we were inside of Google when we started, and there were a certain number of people that just didn't think the real people were going to go outside and play a game, and here we are.
Yeah, and now here we are. I mean, especially all things considered, like COVID and everything, people locked in their houses playing games anyway. Now the idea of going outside to play a game really isn't that far-fetched.
Oh no! I mean, it's a whole genre, and we did a game called Ingress first, and that was the one that really did a lot for us, early on.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was walking around and build our player base, and it built our fan base, and it was a really good thing for us.
All right, did you have a question?
Hi, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
So I've looked at your IMDb page, and a lot of the games that you have co-written, I've played. Like I just, sorry, Ghostbusters. I have a question about
Yep.
that. So
Uh-huh.
I've played the PS2 release, the Ghostbusters video game, and I've noticed that this is the 2009. Is it a remake or is it a remaster? Because I've noticed playing through the original, it's a cartoonish style, and you play as the new recruit. So,
Right.
and by the way, I noticed that you got an anonymity an award for that. So congratulations, by the way, on that.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's always nice to get awards.
Um, so is that a remake or is that a remaster or is that like a new?
I mean, anything you're seeing, I don't know the particular thing you're talking about now, but pretty much anything you see, that's out there is going to be, is some kind of, obviously it didn't come out for that format, but it is probably a remake, or a remaster, but it's not a remake in the sense that I don't believe anybody went out and and made a new game. I think that it's yeah, it's more in that category, it'd more fall into the category of a remaster.
Okay. Um, and I
Does
have a
that make
question.
sense?
Is your background Scooby-Doo? Is that from Scooby-Doo?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's really funny. It's one of these things where I can't remember what the conversation is. We put it up there as kind of a joke, but once you do that, it never goes away. I never get around to changing it. Yes, it is. Yeah, I believe it to be Scooby Doo. Now it's possible that it is one of the other shows I did when I was a Ruby Spears, which is Joe Ruby was the guy that created Scooby Doo, and his partner Ken Spears, and the backgrounds for those shows all look kind of the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, it may be Ruby, it may be Scooby Doo, it may have been some other property that I do not, to be honest with you, know.
Okay. So third question we have, it's a two-parter, kind of. So the
Yeah.
first part of it is, what is the greatest regret of your career or mistake that you wish you could change?
Oh yeah, I'm sure I'm like mentally blocked that out by now. Okay, something I could change. Well, I mean, what happens is, you have a lot of choices to make. First of all, a lot of what happens to you is just downright random. I mean, or I mean, it's kind of controlled random. I mean, figure an RPG character, and you buffed up your stats and stuff like that, but you don't know what the next adventure is going to be.
Hmm.
But you buffed your stats, or your traveling party, being your network and your contacts and all the people you've worked with, they go on another mission. Um, Regret. Boy, I don't really think about it that way. There were a lot of places where the path could have gone one of a couple different
Okay.
ways, and it went some way. I mean, I tend to work on a lot of things at the same time, so it's not like there's something I've said, oh, I'm not going to do that, and go, oh man, that was the biggest thing in the world. I didn't do that. I should have done that. I don't really have that. You know what I mean? Because even if it went on to be a big hit, maybe I would have been the wrong person for it, and it would have bombed badly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to sort of think that like what happens to you is kind of it happens for the best. That's not to say there haven't been epic fails and projects. Yeah, I mean, you do enough projects, and everything that can happen to you will happen to you. You'll
Yep.
have projects that are surefire hits, and they're going to be great and really fantastic, and they just something goes wrong, and I do not want to name those projects. And then there are projects that are just this obscure thing you're doing, and nobody has any big expectations, and then it blows up. And every project has points in it when you think, oh man, this is squid. Why am I doing this? And then then you get out of it and it goes well. But no, I wouldn't say that I really have regrets. I mean, I'm trying to think of that.
Maybe
Uh,
regrets
you
too
know,
harsh of a word. Maybe like a mistake or something so Like a
Oh, I
meme?
mean, mistakes are absolutely routine. I mean, all the time, like every day, I mean, because yeah, you have a choice, and you look at the situation, and you make the best call you can, and then you realize later on, that probably wasn't the right call.
Hmm.
Or a choice between doing different things, or you have a choice between two different paths to go, and you don't go on it, or yeah, oh yeah, there are all sorts of things. There are things that I wish I'd done one more draft of than I did, and there are probably things where I wish I just sort of left it alone.
Things you put too much
I
extra
was
effort into.
it was doing really well. It was really good, and then I went in, got a new idea, and wrecked it. I mean, everything happens. If you're around long enough doing this, you're going to have pretty much every experience that is possible to have.
Hmm.
And and then you just keep going. But yeah, I don't think you'd spend a lot of time. You just keep moving. You don't spend a lot of time with regrets. You learn lessons. I mean, that you definitely learn lessons, and you think, I think next time I'm in that situation, I'm not doing it that way again.
Yep.
But there are very few things, there are very few things that I like. I'm lying in bed saying, if only I'd done that differently, or if only I'd handled that differently, life would be a whole much better place. I mean, that stuff drives you crazy.
It's
I
fair.
mean, it's a great game theory concept, to think about that stuff and sort of
Yeah, it'll keep you
project
up all
out.
night. You won't sleep at all.
Yeah, it's like basically your life and career one big pick path adventure, right? And so it's I guess you could wonder what would have happened if you'd gone the other way, but no, I don't have any like big overriding thing that I feel, oh man, that was the big mistake. I mean, yeah, because frankly, I'm pretty happy with how it's all ended up.
Good. I mean,
Knock on wood
probably
for
the best
this
case
moment.
scenario. Just be
Yeah,
happy.
I mean, it's yeah, I mean, it's I'm not, there's not something I haven't been able to do that I wanted to do, or that that I have some massive regret about. That it really just isn't that thing.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's probably
If
pretty
that
good
makes
then.
sense or is even plausible, but yeah.
No, that answer is plausible. I mean, it's better than no answer. It's better than just not a question. But no, that's a good point, because I think it's a really good point to make that you keep saying is not to dwell on the past and not to get caught up on the mistakes that could have been or should have been. More just like you did it, be happy you did it, be fortunate that you have the opportunity to do so, and then move on. Which I think is very well put.
Yeah, I mean that's what I think. I mean it's like, have you ever known people that have this aura of regret and bitterness around them? It's just it's just not you know
It's
I
sad.
just don't see anything particularly productive about that.
That's fair. It's fair. So on that next question, so this one is the biggest addition to the entertainment industry as a whole that you like or respect that had nothing to do with you at all. So nothing you were attached to or did anything that you did, but something else outside of your realm of control that you thought was like, wow, that is a great addition to the industry, or hey, that's a great use of that IP, or hey, I love
Oh,
that.
you mean the game? Yeah, the games. Yeah.
Games, movies, music,
Oh
whatever
boy,
you
that's
think
a
the
tough
most
one. I
relevant
mean,
thing
yeah,
is for you.
I'd have to think about it, but yeah, you figure that you figure with games. Obviously, different platforms, they came along and changed
Hmm.
everything. That's huge. In other words, phones and so on. But the biggest thing that changed everything, well, I mean, it's real obvious, and but it happened really before. I would honestly say, and it's not just because I worked with him; he was a friend of mine, but I'd say Gary Gygax and D&D. I mean, nothing that we do now, I think would be possible without that.
Okay. Can you go a little bit more into detail about that specifically, or?
Well, I mean, you think about all the things that the Dungeons and Dragons brought into game world and into gaming,
Hmm.
and just into the consciousness, all the things we have now that we wouldn't have had without that. I mean, it's pretty incredible. That no, before that, a game was on a board. Okay, I mean, and you had winners and losers. I mean, what's kind of interesting was, just for game stuff, at the exact same moment I was working for Sunbow, which was really Hasbro's ad agency. Okay, Griffin Bacall, and Sunbow is their production arm. So we're doing all these shows that are, basically 2-hour 30-minute commercials. Transformers, GI Joe, all the toy shows.
Mm-hmm.
But my boss there, Joe Bacall, was the guy who made all the commercials I kind of grew up watching. I mean, he was, he wasn't that old when I was working with him, but he was just kind of a wonderkind. But every Hasbro game you saw where the kid puts his arm up in the room and says, "I won," okay, that was all Joe. Okay, that was, his trademark. And good games were as they were on a board and they had winners and losers, and you yelled "I won" when you won and all that. Then D&D comes along, and all of a sudden, there's no board. You have maps and you have books and stuff like that. But ideally, it's played in your head. Jay will tell you, we freelanced a new game that we're doing. You guys ought to get him to play test Subterraneans with him. But he was
mentioned that to us, yeah.
Oh yeah, you ought to do it. I'd love to come in for it. But what was interesting was, if you could do it on video, I'd love to do that. But we're at GaryCon, and Jay's got his ticket and he's scheduled to come and he's going to DM it and all that, because I just really hadn't DM'd a lot of games in public in a very long time, and so it's kind of like, I don't know if I can do this. Well, it turned out he couldn't come. And so we didn't have the materials, we didn't have the stuff, and I was kind of trying to weasel out of it. And I was talking to Luke Gygax, who runs GaryCon, which that's a convention for Gary Gygax, but there are like thousands of people there. It's not it's I mean, if there is one game convention to go to, I would strongly recommend going to it, because it gets you to the heart of games.
GaryCon, because there's a couple that I've heard of. PAX
it's just,
or PAX, I should say.
I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of great ones. It's just, it's not like GDC, which is really sort of a trade show, and and all that is really, maybe really valuable to folks for getting into the industry, but it's not. You don't spend a lot of time sitting around playing games, whereas GaryCon's about nothing but sitting around playing games, right?
Community.
And so anyway, I DM'd it just freelance, kind of the way we used to do it back in the 80s, when it was all these, you had, Gary and Jim Ward and Ernie and, Ernie Gygax and Luke and all these people who either knew the rules so intimately they didn't need to look at anything, or had created the game and didn't need to, they can make up their own rules. Mm-hmm. Or were people that never played at all, just like, agents and, various different, just people that staggered in who've never played a role-playing game in their lives. And I said, I'll just freelance it like that. And it worked out really nicely. Got to the core of it, because the game really exists in your head. And it's, it's just an imagination trigger.
Yep.
And you can have charts and rules and all that, but it's really kind of improv with rules, which is why Critical Role was such a natural thing, is these are improv actors. A lot of them are comedians, who are trained to think on their feet and do it. Well, what happens when you unleash that on games? Well, you get Critical Role, right? And that's, fabulous. So all of a sudden you had a game that took place in your mind, and nevertheless, they'd figured out how to turn, literally mythology into mathematics, right? Or myth into math, depending if you think of it. What an amazing breakthrough that is. You can take a dragon, he's got an armor class, he, can, breathe fire X distance, and it does X amount of damage. And all of a sudden you can have fantasy objects exist, with, simultaneous with real ones. And frankly, if somebody hadn't had that breakthrough, I don't know that, that any of the video games we're making would be possible.
Okay.
No, that's
a really good answer.
Video game?
I think it's true. I think you're right.
Yeah. So yeah. The D&D spawned so many things. Social networks in a way we hadn't seen before. play-by-mail game turned into online gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And all of it came out of this very small group of people, in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where it's like, 400 below, in the middle of winter.
400
And,
below.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can go ice fishing maybe if the whole lake is frozen over. But, so you're in the house designing these games that started, with simulations, and started with miniatures games, and then all of a sudden magically transformed into role-playing games. And that changed everything. So as far as games, there's nothing like that.
Okay, it's a great answer. Great answer. Because I think you can make a case for that pretty avidly, especially since, obviously you have some first-hand experience with it, but even people who have no idea, who've never played any game before in their life, have definitely heard of Dungeons and Dragons and probably know a little bit about it. So
yep.
So that's a really good answer.
Yeah, no, and what incredibly powerful stuff.
It's pretty moving to think that people of that small scale could think of something that brilliant in a room like this, talking, and then make it into what it is.
It's just downright inspirational.
Extremely.
You know what I mean? I mean, people, they're sitting there in some funky town in in Wisconsin, and boom, they're changing the world. I mean, that's not inspirational. I don't know what is.
Alrighty. So next question is, in your opinion, what is the next big thing to happen to the entertainment industry? In your opinion, like, what do you think is going to be the next big wave? Like, Pokemon Go was huge. That was a wave. That spawned the idea of going outside and playing video games. D&T spawned RPGs. Like, what do you think the next big thing is?
Oh yeah. So let's say specifically gaming, as part of the entertainment industry.
Okay.
We can speculate on the other. Yeah, I mean, streaming was obviously huge.
Yep.
Because it started, it changed. Not only formats where all of a sudden you're watching shows that are one long continuity. They're almost have more in common with soap operas than old time TV shows, which pretty much started in the same place every week. There were no arcs. There were no so on, because they couldn't know when the reruns were going to air, and you couldn't watch them in order and all that. But it also changed the nature of what the content was made for audiences, because it's not in the old network days you had to have 30 million people watching your show or you were bombing. I mean, if you only had 28 million people, you're taken off the air. Nowadays, no show, any show I think is happy to get a couple million, maybe. I don't know the real numbers, but it's a fraction of what it once was, because there's so many different options. But I mean, with gaming, boy, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, the first thing you would normally default to would be some kind of a technological thing, like advances in AR or VR, or when AR and VR actually meet each other, and that would be the obvious answer. I don't know. I think it's that. I think what you're gonna, I mean, kind of what I look forward to, though I don't know that we'll know it when we see it. It kind of later on you'll look back and you go, oh my God, that changed everything. I think it's going to be more stuff where you get more like kind of location-based entertainment that's going to look a little bit like LARPing, look a little bit like role-playing, but real people will do it. Yeah. Right now, there's only a not a huge segment of society that's going to put on a superhero suit and go attend a convention and play Snorkman. They're just not going to do that. But I think there will be things that are much lighter kind of LARPing, where like you wear clothes you'd regularly wear in real life, and you have you go to a resort and it's just got a continuing story and actors. If you take role playing, dinner theater, LARPing, location based entertainment, and themed entertainment, and throw them all into an osterizer, I think it's going to be something. Escape rooms. You take all these things that are kind of, I always look to the underground. Yeah. The temptation is that you look at what the big corporations are investing in. And I just noticed, no, it's what a bunch of people are spontaneously doing that nobody knows about. And then somebody, finds the secret, password to then get everybody to do it. You know, because before Pokemon Go, I mean, Ingress, we had a lot of players. I mean, we probably had 20 or 30 million downloads, and a lot of daily and weekly actives and all that, and that created the firmament under which something like Pokemon Go could take off, because all those people could explain to people what a geo game was. Pokemon brought the familiarity to it, and of course, collecting the Pokemon and the IP and the intellectual, and the payoff. So I mean, it was a perfect synergy in a funny way, and so I think you're going to see more things like that.
I think that's a good point, because again, like Pokemon Go is a great example, like you said, with geo gaming in terms of like locational gaming and changing that and then getting people active. I think it's a really good point, because it got people into games that I have never seen play a game in their lives. Like I've seen, they had gotten to that as a game. Like, oh, you ever heard of this game, Pokemon Go? I was like, yeah, actually, I don't play it, but I know what it is and everything like that. It's like, oh, it's really fun. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, because what you have is you can have a multi-platinum game, right? In your real life. And 6 people in your life actually know about it. You know what I mean? 5 people on my Facebook page know about it, because it's just the scale of things. And that's the only project I've ever been in even remotely involved in. And I had a great deal to do with the protocols of geo gaming. I didn't have I sure as hell didn't create Pokemon. But that the interesting thing there was that that was the game that everybody in my life knew about it. Nobody around me didn't know about Pokemon Go.
Yeah, either didn't know or didn't play. Somebody was either playing it or knows about it.
Yeah, everybody knew about it. So that was a big one.
Okay. And I do like your point about the whole how you said the whole thing, like the LARPing and people like getting into the characters and wanting to go to like locational things. I think it's a really fun idea, because that's a big draw for some people going to some expos or doing some things.
Well, about the time you see Airbnb doing things like having themed places that you rent.
Yep.
Okay. And you have all these resorts that are incredibly themed. And, I mean, when I was a kid, like any resort to me looked like a James Bond movie anyway. That about the time that you start seeing that stuff, coming together,
like
you realize
Westworld?
Something's happening.
Like a Westworld
type
thing?
It's Westworld. And then you see Disney building Star Wars hotels.
Mm-hmm.
You just know something's happening. And it'll have a large, manifestation.
I think it'll pick up popularity once it gets a little bit more
accessible.
Yeah, I think as long as the quality is there too, because people obviously are going to want to pay big money to go to these hotels or go to these resorts and do these fun things like the Star Wars one. If there isn't going to be like stormtroopers and people LARPing in like actual robots and stuff and AI and things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, assume they're but it can be different genres.
Yeah, it could be fantasy.
There's no such thing as electric. Yeah, well, a really interesting thing they did at GaryCon, and that's what I was saying. That's why I looked to the fringes. A fascinating thing they did for it was they did basically a Lovecraftian scenario that was set in the hotel itself.
That's awesome.
The hotel used to be the Playboy Club. Okay, yeah, right. So that is Hugh Hefner's Playboy Club back in the day, and so the story was you had a bunch of bunnies and characters like that wandering around. That's just cool. I mean, what can you say? That's just cool.
Yeah. Some people are going to take it one way, some people take it the other way, but it's just the idea that everyone's doing it together,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that may not be in particular what you want to do, but you go to a resort and you're playing your James Bond spy game, or you're playing your, Agatha Christie's Solving a Mystery, which I've done. actually at at resorts, and it's just I mean it's we in fact family used to go to this place in England for Christmas, and basically it was like living inside some really high end Agatha Christie, and all we were doing was a treasure hunt. It was pretty pretty basic by gaming standards, but it really worked.
Yeah, it was more the experience.
Old English mansion, with the grounds and all that, and you're finding, you're solving a mystery and answering clues and all that. That just really works.
I mean, it can if you can get people for some really enthusiastic people, especially people who like want to act into the character of being the British butler with the serious secret or something, something like that.
Well, I mean. In this particular case, it wasn't that sophisticated. I mean, it was like, it thought out, except you had real butlers sitting there doing things. And, it would be level 2 of that is what I'm waiting for. I mean, when we were doing it, we were, at the hotel and, it was marketed as a game, but you dig one step deeper into that. You have a whole new form of vacation and entertainment. And I can't imagine that not happening.
Okay. Yeah. The thing about
so I think it's going to be that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean I think when you're saying the next exciting thing, it's going to be that. And I think coming out of COVID, we all want to do things in the real world.
Yep.
And be out again. This kind of locked up in the house for 2 years. Gets old.
It does.
And so I think that's that's another thing that to look for. It's just culturally we're going to be in the mood for a kind of experience with real people in the real world doing real things, and probably the opposite. Most big things happen at exactly the same time their opposite happens.
Yeah.
D&D came out about the time the first video games came out. That's not quite true, but it wasn't that different.
Yeah, the timelines roughly kind of coincide.
Yeah,
roughly.
Exactly.
So we got time for one final quick question.
Sure.
So what is a big wish list item that you wish you could make today that you haven't made yet?
Oh, I mean, mostly stuff that we're working on now. I mean, the thing that Jay and I are doing, the Subterraneans, I would love to see that, become maxed out like I think it could be.
Yeah, are you trying to go all the whole 9 yards with it? The whole like video game, movie, book, everything?
Oh yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, that
good answer. Exactly, why not? Exactly, yeah. The worst they're gonna say is no, right?
Yeah, I mean, and you have to start somewhere, and starting at an RPG or starting at something else, always works. So, but I mean, it's stuff like that. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I'd love to be doing right now. Next. That, and then and right now it's unannounced, so I can't really talk about it. But I'm working on
there's some NDA stuff we can't discuss.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm working on a PlayStation game, and it's cool to do that again. I hadn't done that in years. I'd been I worked on Diablo was probably the last mass market. I might be lying to you.
I was looking at that. You worked on Diablo 3.
Really? I'm gonna say Diablo itself a majority of all Blizzard IPs right now are kind of taking a dump down the toilet because of the Activision acquisition and then the whole not treating the IPs very well. But in terms of Diablo 3 was massive, and Diablo 4 when it gets announced and put out there, I think Diablo is huge.
If you purely look at the games and just separate it from the company,
they're good.
They make good games.
They're good. I'm just saying, but they're not.
I would argue they're probably the best. Game developer, publisher there is.
I'd say
they certainly
top 3.
That's not true.
And stuff. I mean, that was the biggest game for the longest time, and again.
I mean, you talk about influential and changing everything. I mean, that's not fair. There are other people that are, other companies, and and a lot of them I've worked with that, are probably just as good. But I mean, there's nobody better than Blizzard.
That's
You
a
know,
really
I
good
mean,
point.
they're
They consistently make
I
Yeah,
great
there's-
games, so
There's not
Yeah.
many people who can put out their own unique IP and compete with Blizzard.
what I don't know is I don't know, and this means I honestly don't know it. It doesn't mean I don't think it, but I don't know whether at what point it's not the same company anymore. And I just don't know.
Yeah,
At what
that's true.
point?
Yeah, it's hard to determine that now, but I mean, you can read the articles and get the information and the first-hand accounts or whatever. But yeah, in terms of like other companies come with competing personal IPs they made that weren't outsourced to them, there isn't anything else like Blizzard. There really isn't. I mean, maybe Bethesda,
yeah,
but
Bethesda maybe.
they didn't create Fallout. They did create Elder Scrolls, so they got to give them that. They didn't really create Fallout, so.
Oh yeah, and you talk about people that I was flat out honored to work with. When I was working with the Blizzard guys, I mean, the Diablo team was great. Chris Metzen, who's basically
Was he
behind
great?
all
Because
that
he's
stuff.
one of the people I would
he is.
personally like to meet.
He is yes, it is. You want to meet him for good reason because he is extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody really quite like him.
That's true. There are a couple people.
I mean, he's very much kind of the modern inheritor of Gary. If you wanted to, draw that comparison.
Oh, that's it's funny you say that. Actually, the modern inheritor of Gary Con. Is that what you said?
Well, no, Gary Gygax. I mean, he's like the legacy of that.
Yeah. But I thought. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I misheard you. I apologize.
Yeah, no, but I mean, yeah, that's I mean, he's like Warcraft. I don't think could have existed without D&D, but Warcraft is also its own huge, massive accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
You know what I mean? That that just stands on its own. I mean, what an amazing work.
So do you have one more question?
I do. Personally, of the games IPs and such that you've worked on, what would you say that your favorite, what would you say that your favorite game that you've worked on was?
Oh boy, I don't mean to evade questions, but I mean, first of all, I would, every one of them, even ones that weren't particularly successful or anything like that, but I mean, every one of them has its own little thing that was really cool about it, and so I don't know that I could pin it to one. You know what I mean? There's and they're really they're really great memories, for and great things you're glad you did, oftentimes for wildly different reasons. There are things where it was just really fun doing it. You were working with a great team, and boy, that was fabulous. Sometimes they're the content of the game itself. Sometimes it's that there's something about the game that you just can't let go of. You know what I mean? It was the experience. Sometimes it was a result. For a lot of different reasons. But and then there are other ones. It's like it's a game. I don't know. You guys would know about it or remember it because it's a while back. A game called Soviet Strike.
I was looking.
Was
at
really
that,
important. That was my first. That was the first it was with Electronic Arts. It was my first major studio game that I did. So that's obviously huge. So and then you have Dead to Rights was really cool.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was
I do know that one.
I have
played
that. That one's in my collection.
I played that one.
Mm.
Yeah, well, and what was cool about that one was that it was just I got a call from a guy. Hey, I got a silver bullet, which used to be a concept in the game business when somebody had a hit, and the silver bullet idea was you've had this big hit, so you get to make anything you want. Okay, it doesn't work that way anymore. But in the old days when budgets were wildly different than they are, and game companies are wildly different than they are, they had you could have a silver bullet. The guy calls me, I got a silver bullet. What do you want to do? And we decided we wanted to do something kind of noir, living around, sort of in Hong Kong, action film world, and the result was Dead to Rights. And it came out exactly like I wanted it to, and it's one of those few charm times in your life when you get to do something that is totally 100% property you can make up. I mean, we just made it up. And what was really fun about that period is my friend was doing a graphic novel series. Well, they made it into movies, about it, Sin City. And so, and he was really into Hammett, and I was really into Chandler. But we'd sort of, work on it together, and so I remember just the camaraderie of that, and the environment of it. And it was that project that came out. This almost never happens, probably better than I expected it to, or had a right to hope it would be. So that's another good one. Things like Ghostbuster, Riddick. Okay, that's really fun because we were really working with Vin, who really is a gamer. Okay, he's not one of these celebrity guys who sort of claims to be a gamer. He actually is one, and hardcore, and really good at it, and just a great guy to hang around with, and all that. So there's another another one of these situations where it's just how do you get a better more privileged thing to do than that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's very rare to, like you said, to be able to have an IP that you solely create yourself and then just go run with it.
I think that's a byproduct of with that generation with the PlayStation 2 is there was no standard, so you could just make a game and it either was good or it wasn't. But the fact the matter is most of those games came out and they were unique. There was mostly unless it was from an IP, but it was mostly a game. That's why I love that era, is because all the games are just great. They're all unique. Yeah,
they're pretty timeless. So on that note, Jason's marking us for time. So any last final words you want to say before we call it?
No. I mean, you can have a last question. You guys have an actual class to do, whereas I'm just kind of. I already told people I'd be late for today's meeting. So if you got anything else you want to ask, do it. But obviously I have, almost nothing but good to say about, being in the game business, and the thing that is actually true is I actually believe all of it. It's been just a great set of opportunities.
I think a lot of the information we've gone over today will be really good to express with other students, people who are in our program and not, and then if we get teachers or family or parents to come to the event and see these, we're going to be recording it and we're going to be playing it back or whatever, but there are going to be some really great questions in here that they're going to probably get, and they're going to get answers. And getting answers from someone who's been in the industry this long and has a track record that successful, it's pretty hard to not listen to what you're saying and be like, wow, he knows exactly what he's talking about, and he's really good at what he does. So it's...
Oh, yeah. Well, you guys are walking in, obviously, to an entirely different industry than I found. When I started, there weren't really video games. There were war strategy games and stuff like that. But, and then when all of a sudden you could tell stories in them, I saw a lot of potential for, I can now merge these two completely different careers I have into one career, right? And you guys are, and it's a good news, bad news, Joe. You guys are walking into, a really fertile new territory.
Yes, and that's I think that's what's personally exciting for me, because what I want to personally do is I want to really grow something and make a really successful business thing out of it. And the fact that Jason and I have gone over this a couple of times. We talked about it, about saying how it's so. There's so much untapped potential and underdeveloped things in the gaming industry that there's so much money there to be grabbed at that it's almost hard not to want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's the thing. As a
young guy, it's hard to be man, I see that and I don't want to do it.
Yeah, and then it's just figuring out, what your sweet spot is, personally, and it is. And just be prepared to change into something else. It's like I was writing screen. Well, no, not a fallback. The world's a dynamic place. It's not a static place, and all everything changes all the time, and so you're gonna want to change with it. No, I don't think fallback, because fallback has this implication with it that it's not really what you want to do, but and all that, and that's not it. I mean, you guys got about I don't know, about 30 years before you have to worry about fallbacks. I mean, it's a lot of ball left to be played. I mean, you're young, and think of it that way, and figure, hopefully you'll have a long career and you'll get to do a bunch of different stuff, and just think of it as, oh yeah, here's one more ridiculous mission that I'm on, and just enjoy it, because I mean, it is an incredibly privileged way to to approach the world. You know what I mean? And, you guys, you're in the right place at the right time. It's not quite as loosey goosey as it was for us, because these things cost a lot of money, but nevertheless, you can still do indie games. You can do anything. I mean, I'd be thrilled to be starting out now, and just don't and don't keep yourself necessarily pinned to games, because that's the other thing that's happening. And I guess that ties to when we were talking about what I think is coming next, is all these mediums are going to be bleeding into each other more and more. I mean, not, in big artificial attempts, but I mean, they just are. Any big intellectual property is, often a game and a movie and a TV show, and it's spun off, and books, and it's comics, and all that, and I don't think that's going to lessen. I think we're at a great moment for you guys, where we're just coming out of COVID, and whatever people thought was really cool during COVID, I think they want something different now. I mean, we're just like, waking up from this just long, sleep, and I'll bet people were doing a lot of really cool work all by themselves that will suddenly emerge. That's I mean, just figure, hey, if the minute you decide I want to be in the game business, or I want to be in the entertainment business, you just sign yourself up for, I'm going on a ridiculous, you're doing Lord of the Rings, or whatever, you're going on a big silly, or I used to think myself as being like some private eye from a 40s movie, where I'd go, when I was a screenwriter, you go over and meet these ridiculous people in ridiculous offices, and it was always fun. I mean, just keep a sense of humor about it. So anyway, that's my last pearl of wisdom. But if there's more stuff you want to ask, Jay talks to me all the time, and I can come back. I mean,
if you have any more questions, we'll just have him ask you.
What?
If we have any more questions, we'll just have him ask you for us.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not planning on ceasing to exist, so I'm around. So just pay me.
Alrighty. Awesome. Oh, we got to swap out?
No, you guys are all set.
Okay.
Oh.
I apprage it. It was nice. It was a pleasure talking.
It honestly was a huge pleasure to talk to someone this famous.
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but no. I mean, but here's the other thing, though, right? Okay, I'm going to get off this call, and I'm going to be in a creative meeting on my next game, and you're only as good as your next one. Everything I've done before doesn't count, other than what I learned from it.
That's
now you got to do something
That's a really
different.
good point, actually.
Yeah, you're just some turd playing out your hand, and I don't want to do that. It never stops. I mean, you guys are you're approaching your project exactly the way I got to approach mine. None of it changes. The arguments don't get any less. It doesn't get any easier. But hopefully it doesn't get less rewarding. Well, that's my last pearl of wisdom. Boy, do I feel like an old guy giving pearls of wisdom. But just go out and do the next thing, and don't be afraid of your instincts.
Okay. There'll be some nice quotes and words of wisdom from you. Well,
yeah, there you go. There you go. Throw a quarter in the machine, and that's what comes out. Yeah. Okay. Talk to you guys later.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Have a good one.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
I'm not sure how to end the
Don't forget
meeting.
to start the record.